Hi, welcome to Tiny Teacup. Thank you for being here. Now, I don't know what the weather is like where you are, but here it is starting to feel like winter is on its way out, and I've even seen the first few snowdrops. But before we wrap up the season, I wanted to give you 8 recommendations for books that are set during the winter time. I'm going to start off with my absolute favorite book on this list, and that is The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. It is set in Alaska during the 1920s and follows a married couple as they try to make a life for themselves on a remote and lonely homestead. One night, during the first snowfall of winter, they built a small snow child in their garden. The next morning, the snow child is gone, but they begin to see a young girl hanging around their property and eventually even begin to interact with her. She seems to be completely on her own and also completely unbothered by the harsh environment that she's in. And the wife is convinced that she is some sort of magical being that they have called into existence to be their child, since they've never managed to have a baby of their own. Meanwhile, the husband is more practical and is worried about the girl's safety. But when winter ends, the child suddenly disappears and doesn't appear again until the first snowfall of the next winter. It is a really beautifully written book, and one that makes you feel like you're right there in the Alaskan wilderness, and it's one that I enjoy rereading over and over again. Next up is a book that you've almost certainly heard of, and it is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Now, I only have the entire collection here, so if you don't mind, I'm going to put this down because it is a brick. It is one of those books that I have a lot of nostalgia for because I loved it as a child, but I think it still holds up as an adult. It follows 4 siblings who discover a mysterious world via a wardrobe where mythical beings and talking animals exist, and an evil witch has made it so that it is always winter. And I think it's definitely worth a reread if it's been a while. Number 3 on the list is a book that I read in January, and it is called Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. It is very much inspired by folklore and by fairy tales and mixes the real world with a world beyond. And it's another one that does a really good job of establishing a really cool setting. Now, snow in winter is not just for being cozy, but it can also bring danger. So here are a few thriller recommendations. The first of these books is by one of my favorite authors, Lucy Foley, and it is called The Hunting Party. It is set in the Highlands of Scotland during the New Year, and it follows a group of old friends that are celebrating, and then one of them mysteriously dies. A book with a similar setting is One by One by Ruth Ware. A group of co-workers get snowed in during a ski trip, and they begin to die one by one, as the title suggests. This one has a lot of good suspense. Another personal favorite on this list is by the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie, and it is Murder on the Orient Express. This is set on a train that is snowed in on the same night where one of the passengers is brutally murdered in his bed, and the iconic Detective Poirot has to figure out which one of the passengers is responsible. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Stephen King, and for the most part, I think a lot of his movie adaptations of his books are better than the originals, but the one case where I do prefer the book is The Shining. A man is hired to be the caretaker of a hotel that is shut down over winter, where he stays with his wife and young son, and slowly as time goes on, he begins to lose his grasp on what is real and what isn't. While the other thrillers on this list happen in the span of a few days, I think this one does a really good job of showing how you would slowly start to lose your mind if you're in a remote location like this. Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys is a more serious book and deals with a real historical event in a fictionalized way. It takes place during the Second World War and centers on a Lithuanian teenager who is sent away to Siberia along with her family to a work camp. Because of the subject matter, it is a tough read, but I think it is an important one. It is a part of World War II that I think a lot of people aren't familiar with. I know I wasn't until I read it, and I think books are a really powerful way to capture and remember history. So those were my book recommendations for books that are set during the winter. But what about you? What are some recommendations that you have? I would love to see some that are more of a cozy vibe. I looked at everything that I've read, but I couldn't find any cozy winter books that were not set during Christmas time. So if you have any recommendations, please leave them below because I would love to read something along those lines. But that's it from me. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching, and I hope that I will see you in the next video. Bye!